Welcome to Conversations Live, where we bring you the best in music, books, entertainment, and more. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 16 years of broadcasting, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience and those tuning in online. We're glad you all could be with us as well. For those who are lovers of history or a great story, our next guest is definitely going to be someone you're going to really enjoy. We're excited to welcome Mark Shulman to our program. Mark is the author of the ShowMeHistory books that I think not only take us into history, but also share some great lessons, but also give us a little bit of fun along the way as well. We'll talk to Mark not only about his love of storytelling, but what is for him to share these influential individuals with all of us, as well as let you guys know how to stay connected with him as well. Mark, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Cyrus.
Well, I've been enjoying these books myself. I'm not quite a kid, but I will say this, Mark, about this series. I love the fact that you're able to take people that we've heard about and kind of give us a little bit of fun depth to them, as well as, of course, being able to entertain along the way. What has it been like for you to see, Mark, the way that these books have been resonating with audiences of all ages?
I've been really lucky because these books have had a tremendous response, not just with kids, with adults, and they're coming up to me and they say, I didn't know that about Susan B. Anthony. Really? She never owned a house? And, Walt Disney was, he always went broke. And when these things come up, you realize that the stories of these famous people we only get little glimpses. We only know the highlights. And there's very interesting stuff in between. And those are the things that appeal to me. I've been a tour guide. I'm a dad. I have a whole lot of experience with sort of bringing out stories for people. And inevitably, there's the things in between the famous parts that will be more interesting.
Exactly. And I love the fact that we're able to kind of get not only the historical perspective, but also the impact. I really like that in the Walt Disney book, Mark, since you brought that up, because I think we're able to see someone who had some amazing ideas, didn't always go over well, but he kept moving forward, right? And it was able to spark not only, of course, I think, other people to get involved in movements, but also to show us all what's possible. What has that been like for you, Mark, to be inspired by these individuals you're able to profile?
Well, I'll be honest, it makes me realize that I need to step up my game because, when you see someone like Susan B. Anthony, who's dedicated her life to women's voting and suffrage, but before that, she spent 20-something years on abolition and then getting the vote for the freed slaves with the amendments. And before that, temperance. She was out there thumping the drum to end the sales of alcohol. So in this, her whole life was dedicated to it, not just a bit and not just the parts that we know, but it was a whole cause. And every day she got up and she made sure that she was speaking for the people who couldn't defend themselves.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I learned a lot from the Susan B. Anthony book, and this might even be surprising to our audience, or maybe they knew a lot more than I did. Mark, I did not know the connection between Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass. And that was so fascinating for me to be able to see. For one, I didn't know he wrote his autobiography when he was 27, but also the rapport that the two of them have. What was that like for you to discover and to share?
Well, I had an in there because I'm from the same city that they were in, Rochester, New York. And so as a kid, you got a bunch of that. You travel to her house, and Frederick Douglass and she are actually interred in the same graveyard quite close to each other. And interestingly, so is my family. So it turns out that with that, the two of them are so intertwined that in Rochester they built a new bridge in downtown called the Frederick Douglass Susan B. Anthony Bridge. So they're even connected there. But in terms of what they did together, it was interesting to know that they worked on abolition and then in the cause of the 14th Amendment, the right for freed slaves to vote. But the line said only the freed men could vote. And so they knew, Susan B. Anthony and the other suffragettes knew that if there's a line in the book, should the word men be put in, it will take us 100 years to take it out again. And actually it took only 80 for women to get the vote after that point. So seeing how that worked out, there was a two of them that came up at that point, because should the effort be on only the freed slaves, or should it also be on women as well, and that all people should vote, or just men? And so it's interesting that though today those causes seem outdated, there's always a parallel.
Right. Now, I should mention, too, we have some help as these books go along. I'm going to say, for those who are just tuning in, you're listening to Conversations Live. Mark Shulman is our guest for this segment. We're talking with him not only about the Show Me History books he's been able to write and share with readers of all ages, but also the history he's been able to share. Really some fun books that I think are not only educational but also inspiring. I'm going to let you guys know how to stay connected with Mark at the end of our segment. Mark, we have Libby kind of helping us along through the book, kind of keeping us moving along. How did you come up with that idea to kind of have the Statue of Liberty kind of guiding the way?
We have two narrators, Libby, who's the Statue of Liberty, and Sam, who's Uncle Sam, but they're both in a teenage form, and they're interesting in their own way, and they give us a chance to kind of see through their eyes what it is that's happening. And Sam usually is the one who's asking the question and doesn't get it. Libby usually has the answers. And when the two of them are taking you through, they kind of represent the reader, like what's going on here and how could they let that happen? And, you know, when you see things that have happened in the past in a modern context, it's hard to believe what used to be acceptable. You know, when I was a kid, being in a car with a mom who smoked, and I didn't have a seat belt, or sometimes I played on the floor of the car, is unfathomable. But that was the times. So in each period, you see things happening that are supposed to be normal, but not now.
Right. Well, I want to talk about courage because, both Walt Disney and Susan B. Anthony in these new books, Mark, definitely show it. I mean, of course, Susan B. Anthony had to be able to face individuals in a very, more, I think, angry way than Walt Disney did. What was that like for you to showcase, and what do you hope young readers are able to get when it comes to that, when it comes to being faced with difficult situations, how they can have courage in the face of it?
If you have something you believe in, you must stand behind it, or else you don't believe it. And if you see things out in the world that don't represent your belief, you need to make sure that you bring a voice to it. You're part of the need that's coming out. Whatever injustice, whatever wrong, whatever hurt you see that you want to try to make better in the world, you have to participate. You can't just step over the problem or ignore it. You've got to bring something to it. I see that the people like Susan B. Anthony, who made her whole life a cause. She was a Quaker, and the part of community service was very much instilled in her. You go from point to point in her life, and even if she seemed to be really hard-hearted or very much so focused that she excluded so many other things in her life, that's because she was driven to all the things others didn't do. She knew she was making up for the people who weren't trying as hard, who weren't able to try as hard. And, that's kind of what I do as an author for kids, because, on the surface, these are comic books, but underneath, there is a need to get parts of their stories out, and I believe that I'm trying to bring out what these characters with these people were doing in their lives, what was important to them. And it's not all nice. I don't shy away from things that I found weren't necessarily admirable about these people. I think kids should have a full picture.
So true. The last thing I'd like to mention with you, Mark, and I really do appreciate this time, is about patience, something that we adults definitely struggle with, but kids do as well. In the Walt Disney story, this is, again, something I did not know, that it took 20 years, of trying to be able to make, Mary Poppins, the reality that Walt Disney wanted. What did you learn from that about the importance of not giving up if it's something, to your point you were just making, if it's something that you really want, not giving up on it and trying to make it happen?
Well, that's exactly true. I wrote my first children's book, in my late 30s, and so I was something I wasn't sure I could do. And when I started, I realized that the dream had to stay alive. It was a flame that was not going out. And so when you see this happen in other people's lives, you recognize a similarity. Things that are just too important to let go. And so with Walt Disney, it was he wasn't just about the storytelling. He was really about trying to use the latest technology, the latest possibility, to be the first with Technicolor, the first with sound in cartoons, the first to have these new innovative processes, because he figured the storytelling would carry it along, but he wanted to have the ability to really make an impact. And he never lost that. That's where the whole idea of Disneyland came from, a day sitting at a carousel and just hating how he was wasting his day watching a merry-go round go around. And so he didn't lose the feeling he had that that he could do better. And eventually he did.
It's a great reminder for all of us. Again, everyone, Mark Shulman has been our guest. Make sure you guys pick up the Show Me History books. You can get them through our friends at Amazon.com. They are published by Portable Press, and you guys can find them all over social media or through their website at portablepress.com. Mark, really appreciate this time and looking forward to having you back on the program again.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Cyrus.
Hey, thank you. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Let's make today amazing. Take care.